YouTube, if you're clicking on this video, I'm sure you want to know exactly what the business model is that has no competition in it. I'm going to get to that in a second. But this is the business model that has led me to be worth over multiple six figures at the age of 22 years old. And I started this business while working on call 24 hours a day, 4 days a week as a plumber. And I was able to make this happen in a year's time. So I'm confident that anyone can start this business model. And the best part is you can do it all from your laptop. So without further ado, what do? I am a land flipper. I am a land investor. I buy and sell vacant land parcels. So yeah, subscribe if you want to learn more about that. I post stories, I post case studies, and I post tips that I actually use in my land investing business. So let's get into the video and stop wasting time. Let me explain why I'm saying my business model has absolutely no competition in it. So recently I bought a land parcel for $3.7 thousand, and that's after closing costs, all of the title company fees. And now that property, I sold it on Facebook Marketplace, and that seller financing contract is worth $19,000 now, and it gets paid out to me over the course of the next 4 years or so. Now, why is this important? I'm not saying that this business has no competition because of this one specific deal, but what came after it. So I bought this land from a brother, and the sister of the brother also owned the property across the street. It's pretty much the exact same parcel, so I know that I'm going to be selling it for pretty much the same amount of money. It's the exact same size, it's the same shape, it's on the same highway, so they're both really nice properties. So essentially what happened here was there was a brother and a sister, the parents died, and each of them inherited one property from the parents. And so at the time when I bought the land from the brother, his sister reached out to me and she let me know that she was also open to selling for pretty much the same price. And so the property was at a little bit of a low point where that road was, which means that water can very easily go there. And there might be not huge flooding problems. It wasn't technically in a FEMA flood zone, but it could definitely cause issues like if you had a mobile home and maybe didn't have like a cylinder block under it. So I wanted to test the market interest with the first property I was buying first to see how that performed. So 5 months later, and honestly, it would have been so much faster. It only took me like a month and a half to sell it, but because the title company was taking forever, it took me a while to actually buy this thing. And then my seller kind of was being annoying to work with, so it took a long time for me to officially sell it as well. It's kind of annoying, but yeah, essentially 5 months later I reached out to the sister. I was able to negotiate, and it was actually a little bit of a better price. I got it for $3,500 after closing costs, so it's pretty much the same thing. Of course, I'm going to sell it for pretty much the same as this property. And the point I'm really trying to make here is that all this happened like 5 months after I originally reached out to the brother. And so in 5 months, the sister never got any letters, she never got any calls, she never got any texts. I was able to buy this thing super easily, and I had no problem waiting 5 months to do it. And I was not even worried that during me testing the market and selling this property first, that she would even get any offers for it. So that's kind of what I mean by my business model genuinely has almost no competition in it, and no one's doing it. I don't know why. It's really easy to do, but that's sort of the point that I'm making here. 5 months and she never got any offers, and I was the only one who was ever going to buy this thing. And so now I want to go over, and of course this is in terms of, I would say saturation is a good word to put it. But of course, now I want to go over essentially the saturation amount in pretty much all of these major land niches. So of course, right here, I have infill. So infill is like pretty much flipping to builders in like really highly developed areas. I have rural infill, which is essentially what this kind of deal was. This is like infill, so it's like pretty small properties, but it's still kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's things that people would want to camp on or live in a mobile home on, or an RV, where you just generally wouldn't be able to do that in your closest city, depending on restrictions. And then you have rural recreational. So this is more so like kind of the same thing as this, but it's generally in unsubdivided areas. And I would say most of the time it's like 2 acres and up. And then you have subdivides, which is obviously taking like huge pieces of land and splitting that up into smaller pieces and then selling them off like that. So in terms of competition, I would say that infill is number one. And the reason this is because it has a very low barrier to entry. You don't really need money to start. All you need money to do is probably mass text or mail, but you're not really buying these properties with your own money. A lot of the times you can essentially wholesale it to builders. So it's free because you don't actually have to purchase property and you collect the difference. Now, this is super saturated because it has such a low barrier of entry that everyone's doing it. And in terms of rural recreational, I would say this is number two in terms of saturation. I would say a lot of people are doing this. And honestly, that's just because it's what a lot of the bigger YouTubers teach. YouTubers aren't really teaching about rural infill, which is what I do. They teach about this. So it's getting more saturated because more newer land investors are going this route, even though it actually has a lower barrier of entry than down here. Because a lot of the times you spend a lot of money to even land your first deal. Like most people recommend having 10K to at least start with a marketing budget to be able to even reach out to owners to even get deals. And so this ties in directly with subdivides because rural recreational and subdivides kind of go hand in hand in the sense that sometimes with your rural recreational properties, you like to flip it and you realize that there's subdivide potential. So it is sort of hand in hand, and subdivides I would just say are a little less common because they're very complicated to do. They take a long time, and you pretty much always have to have a joint venture funder unless you have a lot of money up front when starting the business. And then there's rural infill. And even though this has a super low cost to enter this niche, I would say rural recreational is so much more saturated because one, there's less 2-acre lots, in my opinion, than there are like subdivides. And then they're being targeted so much more because that's what the YouTubers, the big YouTubers, are teaching. No one really teaches what I do, at least from what I know. There's no one super big doing what I do. And so that's why no one really knows about it, and it's super untapped. And so what makes my model different than the rest? So I want to go over a reference from the movie War Dogs. It has Jonah Hill in it and some other dude who's a pretty famous actor. I just don't know his name. And if you haven't seen the movie War Dogs, that's fine, but it'll just make a lot more sense if you have. So in the movie, Jonah Hill is essentially taking like government weapon contracts so he can like get weapons at a cheap price from another country and then sell it to like the United States to make the difference essentially. So he's almost like wholesaling weapons when you kind of think about it. And so what he says is he essentially goes after the contracts that no one wants. He's like a rat and he goes after the crumbs. And so when I think about my business, I kind of do the same thing. I go after the trashy parcels, the small parcels that no one really cares about. Well, everyone's fighting for the 2 acres and up, and it's super saturated up there. But down here, I almost have no competition because no one's looking for the super small lots that have kind of low margins. And so again, I buy the properties that no one wants or are looking for because they don't know how to sell these properties correctly, and they're much harder to comp. Again, most of the properties I buy are in unrestricted areas with poor road conditions and sketchy areas. Now, the road conditions part, some of them have paved roads, but some of them have dirt roads, and you just have to be a little bit careful. And they're kind of in sketchy areas. A lot of people are just living in RVs. You have multiple neighbors with RVs next to each other or trashy mobile homes. But there's ways to navigate this and still make a ton of money. You just have to do a little bit more due diligence, but it's not that hard to do. And people are scared to do it. And that's why no one's doing it. Now, why does it work? Again, people don't want to live in these bad areas. And by people, I mean sellers. And will often sell at deep discounts to get quick cash because they don't really think their property is worth anything. But it's super easy to finance these properties, and you can take advantage of charging high interest rates on like a 48-month term, for example. And so a lot of the times you can make a cash offer for like $2,000 on a rural infill property, and then you can go charge $2,000 for a down payment and then just cash flow the rest, like another $200 a month for a 48-month term. And you're just cash flowing that $200. So imagine if you have 10 deals and you're making $200 on each deal for the next 10 years, then you're making $2,000 essentially doing nothing for the next 4 years, and you're getting all of your money back so you can keep buying more properties. So that's kind of why it works so efficiently. It's super easy to buy these properties. There's not a lot of competition, so you're the only one making offers, and people need to liquidate their land for cash because it's hard to sell these. And so the best part about this business model is that if the people buying from you ever stop paying and they just decide they don't want the property anymore for whatever reason, you get to keep the property without needing to refund your buyer. And that's very clear to pretty much everyone that you sell to. Everyone kind of understands that concept. And so when you're also selling the property, and this depends on the state, but most of the common ways that you would sell a property on seller financing would allow for you to have pretty easy foreclosures without even needing to get a court system involved either. So you don't really even need to sue the other person. A lot of times they can just go sign something and then you essentially just have the property back. So I want to give you guys an example. So let's say you bought a property for $3,000 after closing costs. You get a buyer for $2,000 down, and let's say they have a $360 monthly payment for the next 3 years. Let's say you get your original investment back in 3 months with these numbers, and then you cash flow for the rest of the maybe 33 months. But then 1 year in, the buyer decides they don't want the property anymore for whatever reason. So sometimes like people get divorced, sometimes they don't want to live there anymore. Plans change all the time. The reasons are so vast, but essentially you just get the property back. You just made your investment back after the first 3 months, and you made an extra $3,320 for that year, and you keep the property for the rest of the 9 months that you're getting the $360. Then let's just say you list the property again, and maybe this time you just get $10,000 cash for it. And at this point, that's now all profit. So these are very realistic numbers in the business. And the thing is, when you're selling on Facebook Marketplace, which is like the #1 organic traffic source to sell these low ticket properties, it's very easy to get $2,000, $3,000, $1,000 down on a property. And then a lot of the times they just change their mind. You just get the property right back, and then you can list it if you wanted to for a pretty discounted cash price and then get cash for it very quickly. You turn these properties around very fast. So again, guys, these are very realistic numbers, and it just kind of baffles me that no one is really doing this business model in land. Everyone focuses on the higher ticket properties, but at the end of the day, sometimes the best method is to just go for the crumbs, like Jonah Hill said in the movie War Dogs. So if you guys like the video, please make sure you like the video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Better yet, you can also DM me on Instagram. You can see my socials down here. I answer all my DMs, so feel free to do that as well. And of course, subscribe. Again, feel free to DM me on Instagram if you have any questions. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and peace out.